Welcome back to the Corporate Governance Program. I'm Amir Qureshi, and I do hope you're enjoying our program so far. Mr. Asad Ali Shah, before the break we were talking about the evolution of the code and what changes you would like to see. And we were talking about, one of your points was about the introduction of independent directors. Is there anything else you'd like to see change?
Yes, I think in addition to that, a very important aspect of corporate governance from the accountability and transparency perspective is to strengthen the audit committee. Again, audit committee, the best practices are that the audit committee, majority of the members should be independent, non-executive directors. At the moment, we don't have any independent directors, so that's at least, I would say that at least there should be some element, at least one independent director. Then another important requirement, which is again generally accepted, is that there should be a requirement that the members of the audit committee should be financially literate. They must have some knowledge of the finance and accounting. And one of the best practices is that at least one member should be an expert or have expert knowledge of the accounting framework or Pakistan GAAP, because one of the important responsibility of the audit committee is to oversee the external audit and the financial reporting and reliability of financial reporting. In addition to that, there's one more thing, I think, which earlier Zafar Khan was talking about, when he mentioned that the original draft was watered down. One aspect that was watered down was that the original draft recommended that the separation of the chief executive and chairman position. And obviously there have been debates, because European model is most of the codes require separation, whereas in US still you will find that the chairman of the board is also the CEO. I think after that there has been a lot of progress. Even in US, many of the companies have adopted this principle. And if you really want an independent board to oversee the corporate governance and the company, I think it's simple, because the chairman who runs the board and the chief executive who runs the company, then these two positions must be separated. So I think time has come that when we revise the code, we should separate these two positions for listed companies.
That's actually a very insightful comment. Zafar Saab, you were talking about some of the changes you would like to see, and you've already mentioned some. But is there anything else you think should be modified in the new version of the code whenever it comes out?
Yes, I would have I'd have several recommendations, but I'd like to talk about one in particular, which I think is exceedingly important. We often say people are the most valuable assets of a corporation. I mean, it can be just a cliche slogan kind of a thing, but if you really mean it, then should not the board of the company have a special focus on the human resource side of the organization, if you believe people are your most valuable? And I would therefore like to recommend that, just like the code says there should be an audit committee, I would like the code to also recommend that there should be an human resource committee. And it should do these sorts of things which address the people aspect of things. Now, somebody might turn around and say, well, people management is a function of management. And I would not like to see the board get involved in managing managers and so on. I think that would not be the right thing to do. But nevertheless, a few basic things the board HR committee should do, like, for example, succession planning. Who does succession planning?
Very few companies in Pakistan
are not doing it. And if the board is not given this task or is expected to play this role, and it's left to either the principal shareholder or the current chief executive, then you're likely to run into problems. So we need to have things like succession planning. We need to have things like remuneration. What kind of monies should be paid? Not to everybody in the organization, but at least the CEO and maybe a few top positions. The philosophy, the rationale. What should we do to, up the morale in the organization, the motivation, the human resource stock of the company in a broad sense? So I would like to see the code provide that window where the board can play a role without stepping on managers and management rights in doing that. So that would be one of my principles.
And a lot of good research that's been done by, for example, the Harvard Business School points towards companies which are actually managing, for example, succession planning with the input and involvement of the board. And it's certainly producing dividends for those companies. Asad Ali Shah, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, since the code is only compulsory for listed companies, and a lot of our guests have said that there is no compulsion or there is no desire on part of smaller companies to comply, do you think that needs to be addressed?
Actually, in a way, that is already being addressed. There is recently, actually, the Institute of Chartered Accountants and Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance and SIPE, they had set up a committee to develop a kind of a soft code for non-listed family-owned enterprises. I was incidentally the chairman of that committee, and we have held number of roundtables with the stakeholders also. We developed a draft. We have discussed that with entrepreneurs and family-owned, people who run family-owned enterprises. We held one roundtable in Karachi, one in Lahore, and now we have developed a draft which for public comment. You'll find it on the website of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, SIPE, as well as Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance. Just a few days back it has been uploaded. So, we've already done that exercise. Initial thought process, we had a kind of meeting in which SECP also participated, and there were a number of other stakeholders, and that it was decided that if we want to have a voluntary effort, then regulators should not participate in the formation of the code. So intentionally we kept SECP away from it with their understanding and agreement. And now I think we have come a long way. I think it will be a very good effort once this is finalized. The family-owned enterprises, which is a vast number of entities in Pakistan, I think over 90% of the companies would be small or SMEs. So it is these entities who need to enhance and improve their governance. And this will be demand-based, really. I mean, I think if financial institutions and stock markets and others can, encourage this, and promote this idea that even family-owned enterprises need good governance if they want to attract capital, both equity as well as debt capital. There's huge amount of capital around within and outside of Pakistan.
But that will be, I suppose, the benefit in the business
exactly.
case.
I mean, this is how we can really grow the business. So,
and Zafar Saab, with your experience and background, what do you assess, I suppose, the state of governance amongst non-government organizations, semi-government organizations? What's your experience been like?
Well, I think the principal point I'd like to make is that, for state-owned enterprises.
Can I just stop you for 1 second? We just need to take a short commercial break, but we'll be right back with more of the Corporate Governance Program.